Good evening, my brothers, my sisters, my elders. Today, in these marble halls of the United Nations, history stops. The General Assembly is in its 80th year. The same pageantry, the same protocols. But today, a young man from a landlocked nation stands on the threshold of humiliation. I am Ibrahim Traore, President of Burkina Faso. They ask me to read a confession not written by my own hand, a 12-page script, written in Paris, in Washington and Tel Aviv. It is meant to break me, to twist me in front of the world that observes. But I did not travel here to bow my head. I came here with not merely my own name, but with the memory of a continent that has endured centuries of fire. I know the weight of this minute more than any medal or crown. Hundreds of leaders flashed their eyes at me, their eyes pointed like verdicts. Outside the doors to this hall, millions watch, holding their breath, hoping to know if I will rise or crumble. Before me here on this lectern lies a single file, a thin folder but heavy, with decades of betrayal, compromise, and shame. Its pages are stained with the ink of agreements made in desperation, of promises made to keep them silent. The air of this hall is thick, heavier than any applause could ever be. Not a whisper, not a cough, only the echo of my heartbeat in my ears. On every face I see the same silent question etched like a scar. Is this the fall of a young president, or the rise of a symbol? A leader who broke under pressure, or a man who was so still the earth began to turn around him? And I wonder if our ancestors, those who walked barefoot through fire, who rejected chains even at the cost of death, could look at this immediate, what would they call it? Would they call it surrender, another chapter in the book of our shame? Or would they see in it the quiver of something new, the first gasp of freedom, raw and unsteady but real? This moment is not only mine, it belongs to the miners and tillers, the mothers and scholars, the soldiers who chose hunger instead of treason, the children who continue to dream under shattered roofs. It belongs to each name uttered in strife, each unmarked grave that rests here in the cold glare of these lights. I carry them all, and whatever happens when I speak, my mouth open, whether my words burn or calm, history will not judge my carrying, but my choice. I understand the weight of this moment. It is more than any crown that could be placed upon my head, more than any chain that could be bound upon my wrists. Hundreds of leaders looking at me from their chairs, all of them enveloped in power, calculation, and anticipation. Their eyes do not merely glance, they weigh, they measure, they search for signs of weakness or will. Beyond these doors, millions watch from all over the globe, in crowded cafes and dimmed living rooms, in villages where one television set flickering with a crowd. They sit forward not so much to see a speech, but to witness a turning point. Before me is one file on this lectern. To the naked eye, it is thin, almost commonplace, but I know its contents are anything but. Its pages constitute a history of deals and betrayals, signatures obtained under compulsion, concessions disguised as progress. It is a balance sheet of our dignity bartered line by line for illusions of security and prosperity. It is the burden of choices taken long before I stood here. Yet it is mine to answer for now. The silence here is a living thing. It presses against my flesh, heavier than any clapping, more soundless than any shout. It is the silence of people holding their breath, of centuries suspended between one beat and another. On every face I see the same question written onto their faces. Is this the fall of a young president, or the beginning of a symbol? Will I be another name on the long roll of names of those who promised and then folded? Or will this be the time when something more than one man begins? And in the quiet, I recall those who came before us, our ancestors who walked barefoot on fire, who spoke freedom when the price was death, who sang while shackled so that their children might one day walk tall. If they could look at this moment, this room, these lights, this fragile folder between my fingers, how would they call it? Would they pronounce it surrender? Another calculated act of humiliation? Or would they see it as something else? The trembling, defiant first gasp of liberation. Because this moment doesn't belong just to me. It belongs to the farmers whose fields have been plundered, to the miners who descend into pits of darkness, to the mothers who bury their sons with hard hands and unbroken stares. It belongs to the students who have dared to ask, soldiers who would sooner starve than betray, to the children who dream under roofs, torn by rain but not by despair. I am here for them and I carry them like a refrain in my breast. I feel the rhythm of history in my breast. I sense its eyes upon my back urging me, warning me, and I know that however words come next, whether fire or peace will be their result, whether they will welcome them with cheers, or to censure, they will not be measure on their own as a speech. They will be measure as a decision to bend or to stand tall, to go on or to finish. This is not just an address, it is a crossing, and on the opposite side of this crossing, something will be formed, either another page of compromise or the birth of a new story, one written not in the ink of treaties but in the breath of a free people. This so-called confession accuses Burkina Faso of destabilizing our area, with undermining world peace, with blocking cooperation. It demands acknowledgement, apology, submission. The reasoning is obvious. If the young president submits, our revolt against foreign domination will crumble. Burkina Faso will be once again in line, chastened and silenced. For some in this room, that is the night's hope for climax. For them, my age makes me an easy target. Barely past my mid-30s, I am one of the youngest leaders to take a position on this podium. There are doubters aplenty. Some whisper, I am reckless. Others predict I will not make it through the first year. And here, I am not only surviving but firmly planted at the heart of world diplomacy. This silence is not typical silence. It is the silence of expectation, like waiting for a verdict to be read. Western delegations lean forward, waiting for acquiescence. African delegations sit upright in expectation of defiance but dreading betrayal. Cameras hang around, broadcasting live images into living rooms and offices across the globe. Each step, each flick of my gaze is being studied. I take steps to the podium, firmly. My attire is simple, without medals, a soldier's rather than a statesman's gown. I possess no personal notes, only the folder they have placed in front of me. I adjust the microphone. For an instant, the entire hall freezes. Will I pick up the paper and read the words put upon me? Will I sign my own defeat in front of the watching world? Or will I let this lowly script fall away and write one of my own creation? All my forebears have known the weight of compromise, the obligation of diplomacy, but compromise did not bring me here. I belong to a country oftentimes swept aside as small, landlocked, irrelevant, but Burkina Faso has shed blood in wars against insurgents, has laid men to rest who had courage to speak of dignity. My very sitting at this podium is a continuation of a line drawn back through Sankara, through Lumumba, through every African voice that was muted before its time. I look down at the file they have left before me, for a moment long enough. I will grasp it, unfold the confession, and allow the humiliation its course. Instead, with one calculated motion, I close it, flattening the pages against the wood. The act is whispered, but in the hush the room shifts. The defendant has only rejected the prosecutor's words. Now my voice is loud, measured at first, less so. With every sentence, let us speak, I say, of the first terrible crime. My words echo, not just to the microphones, but to centuries' recollection. I speak of the transatlantic slave trade, 12 million Africans torn from their families, fettered in iron, forced across seas. This is not recent history. It is the foundation of Western empires. The wealth of cotton, of sugar, of coffee, was built not on labor, but on blood. Delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. This is not the tone of diplomacy. This is accusation. The second crime is financial slavery. I speak of the CFA, franc, a currency still tied to Paris. African nations have been compelled to leave half of our foreign reserves in the French treasury for decades. More than $500 billion taken away from our grasp. Part of the French delegation averts eye contact. For once, the accusation is backed by statistics too precise to deny. I look to Rwanda. The third horror, genocide. 800,000 killed in 100 days of fire and machetes. I do not hesitate in naming France as protector of those who committed this act. The air is thickening with tension. Translators hesitate, the weight of every syllable pressing down on the chamber. The fourth crime is the debt that strangles us. Africa's external debt is more than $685 billion, neighboring $90 billion in repayments. Over this same year, we borrow not to live but to survive, while our children die not from sickness but from the cost of medicine. The cold arithmetic of exploitation is laid bare. Then, agriculture, the fifth crime, the ruining of our fields. Ghanaian cocoa farmers shattered by forced liberalization, while Nestle and Cargo pocket billions. When our farmers die, our corporations profit. The sixth crime is the killing of our leaders. Patrice Lumumba in Congo 1961. Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso 1987. When our leaders wrote about dignity, they were buried, but their voices live on. Through us, I do not relent. The seventh crime, the Cold War. Dictators like Mubu were armed while millions starved. We were given guns instead of bread, then oil. The eighth crime, the pillaging of Nigeria. The eye count of ExxonMobil total. Rivers poisoned, earth spoiled, 30 million people condemned to a life expectancy barely stretching to 50. The ninth atrocity, foreign bases. 29 American military bases, 10 French bases still anchored in African soil. They call it stability, but with each base another strand on our sovereignty. Finally, my voice is sharpened to a blade. The 10th atrocity is the manipulation of human rights. Zimbabwe condemned, Sudan sanctioned, but Chad and Gabon excused because they serve foreign interests. To them, human rights are ideals, they are weapons. When the 10th charge of mine falls into the chamber, the mood has altered. This chamber is no longer a stage for rhetoric speeches. It is a courtroom, and the West stands on trial. But I am not finished. My eyes scan the delegations. I name names. Emmanuel Macron. You inherit not only a presidency but an empire of colonizers. The French delegation bristles. Donald Trump. You turn business and oil into negotiating weapons, bought with blood. You claim greatness, but at the expense of pain, not yours. American negotiators freeze faceless. Then I strike at the foundation of finance. To the directors of the International Monetary Fund, you disguise yourselves with development, but you are governors of a financial prison. The silence that follows is greater than thunder, and still my voice carries. We ask no sympathy. We assert justice. When the final word slips from my lips, the room does not erupt into applause. It does not descend into chaos. Instead, a quiet deeper than any roar weighs down upon the room. Silence of guilt, of unease, of truths which cannot be avoided. Western delegates erase each other from their sight. Some scribble desperately as if scribbling notes can shield them from accusation. Others fold arms, frozen in space. On the African side, shoulders stiffen, eyes harden. The silence for them is triumph. I already know what the united countries will. Within a few hours, the authorities will proclaim my speech won't be in the official record because of procedural mistakes. But censorship in the present day is a civilian. By nightfall, the whole transcript will be online. Computer screens will light up in Nairobi and Lagos. In Johannesburg, students will project my words on university walls. We ask for no mercy. We demand justice. Twitter will be ablaze, like dry tinder meeting fire. Hashtags with my name will run wild across Africa, trending not only in French and English, but in Swahili, Yoruba, Wolof, Zulu. Commentators will call it the most defiant African address since decolonization times. I can already imagine the diaspora repeating this fire. In Paris, young Africans will march past the Eiffel Tower with placards, reading, Traoré speaks for us. In London, singing of No More Chains will echo through Trafalgar Square. In New York and Washington, African American leaders will speak of the resonance with their own past, comparing my disobedience to the rhetorical tradition of civil rights pastors. Atlanta and Detroit churches will read my speech out loud as scripture. Not all response, however, will be jubilation. Among policy elites in Washington and Brussels, murmurs of dismay will be heard. Experts will warn of a dangerous precedent. If a small landlocked nation can defy the script, others may do so too. Will this speech ignite a chorus of voices resisting the rhetoric of dependency? Western media will scramble to frame view. There will be those who will write view off as theater, the tantrum of an inexperienced leader. Others will opine about view's undeniable history significance even as they refuse to validate my assertions. Cable news pundits will debate well into the night. Was view carelessness, or was it the view of our times? But in the midst of it all, one thing will be true. This speech cannot be silenced. The chamber's silence will give way to the clamor of streets, the hum of websites, the echo in homes of supplication. What began as a carefully rehearsed confession will be a flame of uprising, and yet behind the slogans and the popular hashtags, a deeper question will be left behind. The world will have heard my condemnation, but what will become of it? Before the first light of the next day, I will no longer merely be the president of Burkina Faso. I will have become something more, something unencumbered by title or by border. What was envisioned as a public embarrassment will have become a transformation so swift that even my critics strain to understand it. I am cognizant of the danger. Western powers hardly ever swallow humiliation whole. Whispers will fly about of sanctions, of economic pressure, even of plots to have me removed by violence. The specters of Lumumba and Sankara will echo every discussion. Remembrances that valor alone is insufficient. Survival. In Africa too, the test is not simple. Pride unites people, but pride also destroys them. Some leaders will welcome this wave of dignity. Others will be fearful that my flame might ignite a fire they are powerless to quench. But I tell you, from this day on, the world can no longer afford to believe Africa will be silent. In victory or in disaster, I will have made that certain. History seldom predicts its turning points. They are presented as ordinary moments, only to be viewed as fire. What was meant to be a charge sheet has become a confession sheet. What was meant to be humiliation has become defiance. And so I conclude with these words. We did not ask permission to be free. We rose up to claim it. And those words are the lessons of dignity, memory, courage, and identity. Dignity, that real strength, lies not in being recognized but in refusing to bend. Memory, that the past is not exterminated. It struggles for breath across generations. Courage, that one honest voice can carry further than 1,000 empty statements. Identity, that freedom begins the moment that we drop imitating and learn to love whom we are. Some will call this address rumor. Others will swear it truth. The United Nations may choose not to publish it. But fable or fact, it will circulate like history itself. Because history is not what is written down in books, but what sears itself into the memory. Memory, what is carried on whispers, what marches down the streets. The question, then, is not whether I spoke these words. The question is what you will do with them. Will you let them pass as a headline gone to tomorrow's news, or will you take them as a vow, a reminder that justice cannot wait for permission? To you, listener, I issue a challenge. In your own life, are you waiting for permission? Or are you prepared to stand and steal what's theirs? If my past moves you, take up one word, justice or freedom, or simply black, gold. Set the world on notice which fire you will burn with, because freedom is seized. It is seized by those who have the courage to insist.